So, it's a big title. I'm not going to talk technology. I know that's the title of the slide. If you do want to talk technology, we can do it in questions afterwards or later on after the sessions. But I'm going to talk about what technology does. So I'm going and how it can advance thought and create new opportunities. So the thing about building trust and transparency in CSR is important because we're beginning to get regulations. Soon there'll be compliances. There'll be a mixture of mandatory or company decided. But certainly, if you begin to get mandatory, there's going to be legal implications of what you do. It's important if a company is going to use CSR to drive business, because studies show that companies who have a strong CSR impetus, a strong CSR mentality, it actually drives user and consumer purchases and support. So it's important that if a company says it's doing something, it can demonstrate that that's exactly what it's doing. And that's what we've begun to learn with the work we're doing with companies, is helping them to actually demonstrate that what they're doing and what they're saying is true. Now, the one bit of technology I will talk about is something called blockchain. So you might have heard about this. It's a thing that drives cryptocurrency. So sometimes it gets a bad press because cryptocurrency is used for bad things. But blockchain is tremendous technology in a sense that it creates an immutable record of what's happening. So when something happens, you cannot take that away. So for a company to demonstrate what it's doing is it can record the activities and then know that those activities are there for perpetuity. And the other thing about the platform is you can share the data. It's a distributed platform. So no longer do you hold data in your own data centers or in your own organizations. It's actually published in a way that people can see it. So it enables companies to not just talk about CSR when they're doing their annual reports, but people can see on a daily basis, on an hourly basis, on a second-by-second basis, what that company is actually doing in terms of their CSR activities. I'm going to talk about this using three particular use cases. I was going to spend a bit of time on IIC as well, but Phil's covered that quite well. So I'll just talk about it at a high level. But there's two other customers, one called Plastic Bank and one called Newlight. Now, Plastic Bank is an organisation that is trying to address poverty and ocean plastic. And I'll go into that in a bit more detail when I tell the story of the platform. Newlight is a magical company, literally. They're doing alchemy. They're making plastic from thin air. Yeah, and that is absolutely true. They're taking air and turning it into plastic products. And we'll talk about the implications that has for their business and their customer set. And then obviously there's IIC. Now, the thing that we're trying to do is with CSR, a company can do its own things, and they can be very isolated in what they do. But the strength of CSR really comes when you use partnership and collaboration to amplify the things you're doing. So, Phil's business is a great one because it's basically a CSR business in its own rights, but it's allowing other companies to demonstrate to people what they're doing. And I'll talk about the other two companies in a second and talk exactly how they're doing it as well, and how their own vision of changing the world is magnified by the people that come on and help them do and participate in what they do. So the first one I want to talk about is Plastic Bank. I think it's useful to tell the backstory on this one. This is a guy, he made some money. He's an entrepreneur, made a successful exit, several $1 million, and decided that he wanted to do something with that money because he's proved himself, he's created a business, he wanted to do something else, but this time he wanted to do it to change the world. So he was born on Vancouver Island, he loved the ocean, and he loved the purity of the ocean, but then saw it begin to get damaged by the plastic pollution. So he wanted to do something about that. And he didn't know how, and you can see the pictures here, of what plastic actually does to the environment. Now, he had a magic moment when he went to a conference and he discovered that 80% of the plastic comes from impoverished areas. So this is where people earn less than $1 a day. And he thought, well, if I could turn that plastic into something of value and get people to collect that plastic, then I can pay them for collecting that plastic. And it's a wonderful business model, and it works. But the only problem was that the plastic didn't have enough commercial value for it to be recycled and pay the people a fair price for collecting it. So this is where I think he had a moment of brilliance, and this is where we get into CSR, is he thought, who's got the problem? Now we say we've got the problem because plastic's in the ocean and we're eating the plastic when we eat fish. But from a business perspective, the people with the problem are the people that's creating the plastic. And we as consumers are now beginning to point our fingers at them saying, we're not going to buy your bananas because they're wrapped in plastic. We're not going to buy your curries because they've got 3 layers of wrapping on them. So he managed to put a case to the big manufacturers to say, if I can help you fix the problem, be seen to be fixing the problem, then you can pay extra for the recycled plastic that I'm giving you. And that was a very, very smart move, because what he's done now is actually given them a marketing opportunity. And you have to be careful, because when I tell this story, some people think about greenwashing. People are greenwashing their brand. This isn't the case. I've dealt with lots of large organisations now, and they all want to do something to save the world, apart from tobacco companies maybe. But most companies now, the large organisations, want to be seen to be doing something and putting their profits back into society, because it's good for business. So he said to them, if you pay extra for the plastic, then I can pay the people at the bottom a fair price to pick that plastic up. So we created a system that tracked not the plastic coming back up into recycling, but the money going down to the people. Because one of the problems in this environment is fraud, corruption, theft. So we had to get some way over that. So that's why we use blockchain to track the money. So that was the original business decision, to use blockchain, but then you apply it in a different field, and now because you've got absolute immutable data of what's happening to the money that's going down the line, the CEO of Plastic Bank can now go to large organisations and say, if you give me money, I can prove to you how that money's being spent. And more so, like the intention is that when you go to buy a bottle of shampoo from the supermarket, you'll be able to see the village where the people lived that picked up that plastic bottle. So it gives you a complete connection with what's happening in that supply chain. So this is a very, very high level demonstration of how a simple idea that someone had about cleaning the plastic, cleaning the ocean of plastic, actually spreads into saving poverty, but spreads into large organisations that want to tell that story that then encourages people to do other things. So it's almost like its own circular economy where doing good and advertising the fact that good is being done actually creates more good in other people. An example here, this is the guy on the right is David Katz, the CEO of Plastic Bank. The guy on the left is Richard Fisk, who's the CEO of SC Johnson. So SC Johnson are now putting lots of money, like lots and lots and lots of noughts behind their orders to support this. And now SC Johnson, if you look like, is Henkel, Marks and Spencer's, they're all using this system now to promote their CSR. Next example is a company called New Lights. This is the magic one that's creating plastic from the air. It's literally, they take methane. Cows breathe 650 litres of methane every day. And methane's a valuable gas. So he did think about capturing it in canisters and selling it, but then he learnt that there's bacteria that eat methane and turn it into polymer. So we all create polymer in our bodies, not very much, but some. And he found a bacteria that creates lots. So he feeds it with methane, creates plastic. In 2016, he signed a £12 billion, this is £12 billion of plastic, order with IKEA. So many of the IKEA products you're getting in the future will be based upon this magic plastic. It's called air carbon. So the challenge he had was, how do you prove to someone that when you pick something up and it's made of plastic, that it actually came from a cow? Or it's doing it with CO2 as well. So it's come from the air around Los Angeles. So we created blockchain to create a manufacturing provenance to prove that when you get a product, you can scan a code on the product and it will tell you where it came from, what landfill site, what cow. Now, what's this got to do with CSR? Well, number one, it's another company that's saving the world. It's taking out greenhouse gas from the atmosphere. So it's a CSR company, if you like. But it's selling this polymer to the large manufacturers. So IKEA, Dell, if you buy a Dell computer, the see-through plastic bag you get the parts in is made from air carbon. So it's enabling them to actually say, when you buy our product, it's coming from a sustainable environment. And it's using the blockchain system to do that. Now, without the system, it's very difficult for companies to do this because the question is, can I believe you? Is it real? Yeah. So this is using the immutability and the shared infrastructure of the blockchain systems to actually help tell the story. And lastly, we move to IIC, and I think Phil has talked about the platform, but again, this is a platform that helps other companies to actually talk about what they're doing with their CSR in a very honest and open way and trusted way. And it's all about that trust, because I assume many people in the audience are from charities. The question that always comes up when charities request money is, where does my money go? And I myself have put into charities and then found out that 97 pence in a pound goes to a charity. So it makes me stop when people ask for money now. Whereas if you can actually demonstrate exactly where every single penny of the money goes, how much goes in admin, how much goes into blankets, how much goes away to fraud, hopefully this platform would stop that. But that's why personally I've got a passion in supporting platforms like this, because it gives that truth and transparency to people and the honesty of what's happening. And then, because I think most people have got the altruistic gene inside them to give, but we just got to allow them to give in a way that's easy for them. And this is a bottom line I always give to businesses, is that people say, what's in it? Why do we do this? And I think the thing, social good for profit, is important because volunteering has got a certain lifetime. People get fed up with it. Businesses port it and then go away. But if you can make money by doing it, and I think the examples I've given are good ones of doing that. If you can make money by giving, so show businesses how they can profit from giving, whether it's increasing their consumer buy-up, whether it's about increasing their revenues from additional sources, it doesn't matter. If you can put some angle on it where you can actually show that a business makes money by doing good, then, as I say, it's good for the bottom line. So very, very high level pitch. I was hoping to just give you some insight into how other companies work, what you can do with CSR. The important thing is to try and collaborate, to amplify the things you're doing to try to get the synergies to create extra good for the world. So don't know if there's any questions.
Yes, my dog creates an awful lot of methane. Would you like it? Can I pass it on to somebody? It's not doing me any good. Any questions? Gentleman at the back.
Rob, you talked about blockchain, which is a sort of very generic term.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that you developed as a spoke model for IIC.
Yes.
Is it possible to patent something like that? And if it was, could it be licensed out to other charities to get some philanthropic benefit from it?
Well, the answer to that is always yes. A question like that is how is a question. So it all depends what kind of patent you're looking for. I'm not a patent lawyer, but you can patent most things if it's original. So the platform we created, and you're absolutely right, blockchain is a generic word in the same way that a database is a generic word. It catches the headlines because it increases people's stock value normally when they say it. But the underlying quality of blockchain is the fact that it is immutable and shareable and observable by anybody if it's implemented in the right way. So I don't think I answered your question directly. So I would say, if you've got a follow-up one to draw some more out of me, please ask it. No? Okay.
Anyone else? Have you bamboozled some of us with blockchain?
Well, I really didn't want to do that because we can talk about blockchain. I can describe it very easily, but this wasn't, unless people want to understand what blockchain is there a show of hands where people say, yes, we do? Oh, wow.
Well,
Okay.
you see, in my head, it's you know, sort of it's used for all sorts of.
Yeah, okay, so I'll give you a quick 101 on blockchain. So blockchain is basically a way of tying blocks of data. So think of a page of information. It's a way of tying a page of information to another page, to the next page of information, in a way where if you change anything on the previous page, this page is affected. Yeah? And they do that by a special thing called a mathematical hash. So basically you get all the information that's on this page, you put it through a special mathematical algorithm which comes out with a number. And you put that number on the following page. So the following page has got all its own information plus a number that contains all the information of the previous page. So if you think about building a chain of pages like this, that's exactly what blockchain is at the simplest level. People talk about blockchain because you have different architectural layers. So an architectural layer is just one thing that helps a layer underneath do something. So if you think of all these pages of information, you have a layer on top that tells you how to read that information. Yeah? And then you have layers on top that tell you how to write a program to that application. So when people normally talk about blockchain, it's normally at the layer where people write applications to. So I don't know if that's clarified things or made you even more confused. Yeah?
It's distributed ledger technology, is that right?
That's another name they give it. So
Yes.
the other quality with blockchain as it's implemented is the fact that you have multiple copies of this information. And because every copy should be exactly the same, if any one copy is changed, then the copy that's changed is quarantined. It's like, you know, if we all have the same information, one of us walks out the room, somebody else comes in and says, you know, that thing there should be 56, and we all say, no, it's 57, then we say that person is quarantined and we're not going to accept their data. So this is a way that they guarantee the immutability. It's the hashing compared to, associated with the replication of the technology. So this is why blockchain is considered immutable, because you can't change the thing itself, but if you did have ownership of that thing, other people would have a joint ownership and they would see the changes you made were actually changing the information.
Somebody explained it to me as if I thought about Charles Dickens writing about, you know, Bob Cratchit or whoever it was that filled in the ledgers, and if he had to change a figure in the ledger, then it was there transparently, but every other copy of the ledger would automatically.
Well, you couldn't change a copy of the ledger.
at the same
You
time.
couldn't even change a copy of the ledger. It
No.
wouldn't be allowed.
Right, okay.
So it's a
So we
combination
can't
of the
do
two.
Any of that without everybody being able to see.
Yes.
this- Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. The activity.
So that's a reason.
Extremely transparent.
So from a CSR perspective, you know, if you're going to say you've done something, then it will be absolutely clear to everybody what you've actually done, because they could look at the records.
So, what you're saying then, if I've got this right, is that this allows every business then that is involved in CSR to prove categorically every activity that has taken place within
Absolutely, down to the minutest detail. It's dependent. They can always decide what they want to show, but you can go down to the minutest detail. So for the plastic bank application, for example, they could go down to the actual the cents, as in dollars and cents, that were paid to an individual person. You know, for the new light application, you could actually see where that ounce of gas that made that piece of plastic came from. For IIC, you know, you can see exactly, you know, who carried out a piece of work and where that credit went to, or who funded that piece of work. Yeah, so, and you can make that as open as you want. That's a business decision on how that's done.
So that would be available to investors, available to somebody donating, available to internal comms teams to be able to talk to employees about what's happening within the organisation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So investors are important because they would want to see where the company's money's going. The consumers are important because you want to encourage them to buy the product. Employees are important because now, you know, the millennials especially are looking at, they're actually judging the companies who they want to work for. So they might pass an interview and then say, I don't want to join you because I don't like what you do in the world. and many large companies are recognising this now, so they actually want to see that, that their future employees have actually got a good social given record, which again is one of the key points of the IIC platform, is it can begin to be used by prospective employees to show their employers, you know, how charitable they are.